one quick 2-minute introduction to this next topic. If you ask most Jews today, most Christians, they will answer and say there were how many days of creation?
7, 6.
They would say 6. 6 days of creation. And then, how many days of rest? 1. That was very good, yes. Why? 1 day of rest. That is, generally speaking, how people look at it. I would like to debunk this idea. Could someone turn the light on at the back, please? Thank you. I would like to debunk this and show you actually there were 7 days of creation. What do I mean by this? Because if you read the narrative of the Bible, you will see that it's 6 days and only 6 days, and each day something was created. I want to show you that actually the 7th day there was a creation, something was created. How tangible it was is a question, but there is something that happened on it, okay? And we are discussing the idea of menucha shalema. And by the way, sometimes that paper, one last thing. The paper you're writing, although it may be frustrating, and probably just do exams, the rest of it, I've made the past 3 years do the paper, and it happens to be that people afterwards, even after they've done the course, after they left Stern, have written back to me and said how appreciative they were they had this paper in their hands. And some actually submitted to their local papers and submitted to their local synagogue. You know, there's like newsletters, and actually had them printed. Okay, so I know you may be frustrated, you do extra work, no one has time, you're very busy with all your work, studying, and Facebook updates. I respect that. I do it too. However, you'll find that the paper will actually concretize and crystallize much of what you've learned this semester. Okay? Okay, so the idea of menucha shalema, complete rest. What are we talking about? Okay, page 84. Menucha Shabbat, the rest on Shabbat, hamushalemet eina mitba'at be'isur malacha bilvad. It's not just giving up doing malacha. Okay, we discussed this before already, if you remember. Shabbat is not merely not doing something. There's something you do have to do. Okay, it's not just stopping malacha. We discussed this already, but now we're going to get deeper. We're going to double click on that idea. Ella sheyesh la'gir b'Shabbat lemenucha muka panimit. You're going to have to reach, say the Jewish sources, a very deep rest on Shabbat. A very deep rest. Okay? That, by the way, does not mean sleeping for 20 hours. Okay, that's not the rest we're talking about. Although many people will spend their Shabbats completely sleeping right through it. That's a shame. They're missing out a lot. Truthfully, they're not breaking Shabbat. They're not doing the malacha by doing that. But you're missing out something very crucial when it comes to Shabbat. You're only getting half the story, and you want to get the whole story. We talk about this on Shabbat in the Mincha prayer. And in the Mincha prayer, it says, Menucha ahava v'nadava. You're going to find a rest that is love and giving. Menucha emet ve'emuna, a rest of truth and faith. Menucha shalom, a rest of peace. V'shalva, and tranquility. V'hashket ubetach, and silence and security. Menucha shleima shata rotzeh ba. This is the menucha of completion that you, God, want from us. That is what the Mincha prayer, the afternoon prayer on Shabbat says. What are all these words? Isn't rest just rest? Isn't rest just lying on a hammock, drinking a martini or something? Which that's probably a messy thing to do, by the way, like all that swinging around. And personally, I can't lie in hammocks, I get seasick, okay? But I'm very motion sensitive. But that's not the point. The rest we're talking over here isn't doing nothing. I like to call menucha active rest. And these are the words of Rav Lopian in his book Lev Eliyahu. And he opens this up and says, Eliezer Lopian, and he says the following. Look at, have it down page 84. Daniela asks, what are you rearranging your cutlery for?
Sorry.
Menucha, it's like I'm in high school again. Menucha ahava on a dava. What is this? Follow inside. Menucha Shabbat. What is the rest on Shabbat meant to give you? Ahava, love, habriut, of creation. Meant to love creation. Ahavat, briut, unadivat lev, and a giving heart. When you rest on Shabbat, It's meant to make you into a different person that loves the people and everything around you. Unedivat lev, and make you into a giving person. Anything else, any form of stress and aggravation from people is meant to leave. Samech ba'ashram va'ashram shel achirim. You're going to be happy with what you have, happy with your lot. Whatever you have, and you're going to be happy with it, whether it's a lot or a little. Right? And you're going to be happy with what other people have as well. If someone's wealthy, you're going to be happy for them. Happy for you, happy for them. Va'ena mekaneh, no jealousy. So his definition of menucha ahava nedava, a rest of love and giving and charity, is not giving charity, but being happy with yourself, loving yourself and what you have, whether it's a lot or a little, and being happy for other people. You're not going to be jealous for other people. During the week, someone has something nice. You're like, oh, I'm going to make a business deal to get hold of it, or I'm going to try to get that thing, or whatever I need to do, and you're going to get jealous of that thing, that person, what they have over here. No. Whatever I have is what I have. Whatever they have is what they have. I'm happy for me, and I'm happy for them. Yeah. He's halfway through, by the way, so.
Value we try to encompass the entire week. Like, why is it should be, if that's a general law, then why does that attribute it?
It is a general law. One should not be jealous of people's things. It's a fair point. It's general nature, though. You're meant to overcome it. On Shabbat, you're not meant to struggle with it at all. It's not a struggle. It's totally, whatever you have, that person comes in, they're rich, they're poor, there's nothing I do about it anyway, because I can't work. But it's a mind game. I'm going to be happy for you. Really, you're right. You're meant to be happy all the time. We're learning that out from Shabbat. The fact we try to do it on Monday or Wednesday afternoon is going to be learnt out from here. This is the source text for this idea that what they have is what they have, and that's what they're meant to have, and what I have is what I have, and that's what I'm meant to have. Whether it's a lot or not that I'm poor, and whether a rich person should be the same thing too. You know what? What I have is what I'm meant to have as well. I'm meant to be a billionaire, which I'm not. I wish I was, but I'm not. Yeah, we together. Let me finish off, because it's kind of like there's three parts to this. So the first was menucha ahava nedava. The second is menucha emet ve'emuna. What does that mean? Truth and faith. Menucha shaba mitoch hakarat ha'emet. This rest comes from recognizing the truth, from knowing the truth. Shabbat is a day of emet. Actually, the word emet appears explicitly and coded in a number of places in Shabbat Tefillah. We discussed this before. It is a day of truth. There's no falsehood. It's the real you. Shabbat is the real you. Menucha Shabbat mitoch hakarat emet, recognizing the truth. Ve'emuna, and faith, amitit, true faith. B'shem hakol yichol hatov ha'meitiv ha'mashkiach alav. That everything God does, I have faith in. It's what needs to happen. Ubotech b'Hashem, and I have trust in God. Ve'eno yira b'shum tsar. I'm not going to worry. I'm not going to stress out. I'm going to have faith, right, in the truth that God runs the world, and whatever I have. I'm not going to stress out. I'm going to have faith in myself in the future. Okay. And finally, menucha shlema. Menucha shalom, shalva, heshka v'betach. Those are different things. Shalom is peace. Shalva is tranquility. And God willing, when you have families, you know there's a difference. Okay? Heshkat, sheket, silence. It needs to be silence. Ubetach, and security. And he says, sheket mitoch hamilchama. This is silence from inside the war. What war is he talking about? Shebekerev libo, which is inside your heart. Right? We have many stresses and struggles, and they're only going to get worse. The nafsh shel adam, it's like the soul of a person. Your heart's struggling, your soul is struggling. Shabbat comes, I'm at peace. Everything is silent inside. I am one. Ein od bo milchama. There is no inner battle, panimiet, to meet it, bekochat nefesh, inside myself. I'm not going to fight. I'm going to let go. Ella shalom v'shalva. I'm going to be at peace with myself. I'm going to be tranquil. Batech b'Hashem uvezrato. And I'm going to put faith in God and His help. So this is the fourth one. Menucha shlema sharoseba. Harmonia shlema bein nefesh b'guf. This is the peace between body and soul. right? The body and soul are not fighting anymore. You're at peace with yourself. Your body's not dragging you somewhere. Your body's going to give in. It's going to eat what it wants. It's going to eat good foods, and your soul is going to be happy with that. Right? Shabbat is not a day for dieting. It's also not a day for gluttony. The Vilna Gaon says many people use Shabbat as an excuse to overeat, and that's not okay as well. Gluttony is never a good thing. But eating fine foods, eating good things, resting your body, resting your soul, taking time for yourself, all of that is expected for us on Shabbat. So those are the three areas and the result of those three areas. Ahava Nodava, love and giving. I'm going to feel good about myself, feel good about others, no matter how much I have, what they have. Emet v'emuna, truth and faithfulness in God. What I'm in is what I'm going to be doing. I have truth and I know the truth. I'm a person of, this is the real you. Shabbat is the real you. Good name for a book, write that down. Right? Menucha, if you write that book, put in the introduction. Menucha shalom, shalva ubetach. Shabbat, the real you. Menucha shalom, shalva ubetach, and a rest of peace, tranquility, silence. Just inner, not silence around you. You got kids running around. It's got to be an inner silence, an inner quiet, an inner peace, if you will. Okay? That a person has on Shabbat. And by the way, a lot of what we do on Shabbat reflects this, right? You're not meant to run on Shabbat. You're meant to walk slowly. Psiyat Katanot will say in Zemirat Shabbat. You're meant to walk slowly. Also, you dress differently. You're meant to feel different. Right? Those who keep Shabbat know what I'm talking about. It's just a different reality. You relate to the world in a different way. Okay? It's slower. It's calmer. It's relaxed. Outside you're calm, and inside you're meant to be calm as well. Okay, those keep Shabbat. It happens naturally, but it takes some work as well. Okay? Says the Midrash Tanit Debei Eliyahu says, top of page 85. Yamim yutzru v'lo achad behem. Days are formed, but one of them was different. Zeh Yom Shabbat Yisrael. This is the Shabbat for the Jewish people. Ketzad how? And he says, Adam osel melachakol shisha v'nach b'shvi. A person works for 6 days and then rests on the seventh. Nitratzeh im banav im bnei beito. You start to have a relationship with your children and the people in your home. During the week, you're busy. Right? You'll see, God willing, you're going to have jobs, you're working, you're running around, there's phone now, there's email, social media. It's constant. It's only getting worse. It was always a problem. Now it's only getting worse. He's like, one of the reasons we have Shabbat is to actually spend time with our families. Right? Whoever's around you is there. I think I mentioned before, the phone rings during the week, right? By the way, the phone rings in my house during the week, I don't answer anymore. Even during the week, I don't answer. The kids answer it, I'm like, you pick it up, you're responsible for it. Right? I don't care who it is, you're dealing with it. I don't want to speak to these people, right? Shabbat counts, you can't answer the phone. Right? That means you're present in the moment. Okay? That's what he says. Nitratzeh, you start to make a relationship. Banav im bnei beito. By the way, and you can argue this if you want to, I sincerely believe, and there are articles which I've posted on this idea before. There's a recent one actually. I think Dr. Oz did something on this, probably. But there's an idea that your shalom bayit increases incrementally between you and your spouse and your children if you have a tech-free day. This is not a new idea for the Jewish people. I believe that the divorce rates among Orthodox Jewry, one of the reasons that divorce rates are lower, I won't say they're low, but are lower than the rest of the society around us, is because of Shabbat. I happen to believe that is true. And if I wrote a book on Shabbat, which I haven't yet, I would make a chapter on, and I'm sure you can find studies on this, or you can prove it. I would show that Shabbat somehow, actually I know how, Shabbat has a major impact on relationships and marriage success. I believe that to be true. One day we are not distracted by other things, and that's one of the reasons for Shabbat. That's what he's saying. Nitratzeh im banav v'im bnei beito. That's a code word for saying it improves shalom bayit. Shuv adam osa malach b'nei oivov kol shisham emim v'nach b'shvi. He says you can work hard and struggle, but one day a week you forget everything that came before. Shachach kol tzar shaya lo. It's amazing. You can have the most stressful week ever. Crazy things are happening to you. I know people are dealing with multiple dollar court cases. See on Shabbat, we got no idea. Right? Monday morning, they're back in. But one day, they're just different people. Could you open the window? It cracks your minds. It's very schwitzy in here. Thank you. Kachu milato shel adam. And it says that's the way God created the world. God created mankind. Yom tova, a good day, mishkach yom ra. It's going to help cancel out a bad day. You have a bad day, then you go to bed, you wake up, and it's a good day. It's amazing, right? That's actually one of the reasons, I did mention this in my first book actually, that Hashem created days. Why did God create days? Why couldn't just God create one long day? Why do we need 7 days? Why do you even need days at all? Why do we need night and day? Just create one long day. We're all around for, for however long we're living. Why do you need to have one? So one idea is that you can have one bad day, you go to sleep, wake up, and it's a whole new day for you. You get to restart, you mess up, you do stupid things, you say stupid things, and then you wake up the next terrible day, and you wake up the next morning, and you get to restart. It all starts again. Right? If it was one long day, you have one bad day, it's going to last you forever. So Hashem created the system this way. Yom Tova, good day. Mishkach, Yom Ra is going to cancel out a bad day. Yom Ra, Mishkach, Yom Tova. That's just the way it is. So Shabbat comes as a good day. It is good. It is Tov. It is Tov. And helps you cancel out all the bad days that came before it. Right? Let's get to the main point. Yes?
Would you be willing to break Shabbos to prove your point?
Would I be willing to break Shabbos to prove my point?
Yeah.
What point? That I'm not divorced?
No, but I guess we need to study on how to break Shabbos.
I can't do that. There's enough people out there who don't keep Shabbat, who don't have a day of rest, even non-Jews, who you can use as control groups. I would not break Shabbat for that reason. I wouldn't break Shabbat, and it's easy for me to say this. I've not been tested with it yet. If I knew the phone was ringing, and I knew that if I answer the phone right now, I could get $1 billion through a deal, I wouldn't answer the phone. I'm not saying it would be easy, but I would not answer the phone if I knew for a fact that if I answer the phone right now, I'd get $1 billion. It would be the hardest phone call not to answer. And I know people who live that way, and if I knew that that deal was passing, okay, but whenever I give this example, we're like, okay, but would you get the clean lady to answer the phone for you, take a message. If the deal is I have to answer the phone, Sarah, and if I do, I get $1 billion. If I don't, someone else is going to get it, I wouldn't do it.
But think about what...
I think about a lot of things when I think about that, my love. Think about my tuition I'm paying for my daughters.
What if you answer the phone and you need all the money to Sabbath?
I hear you. That's a very good question. I answer the phone and all the money gets given away. That is called that's discussed in the Talmud. And under the title of Aveira Ba'alidei Mitzvah, right? A mitzvah Ba'alidei Aveira. A mitzvah comes through a sin. It doesn't mean anything. It's under a chapter called Lulav HaGazal, which means let's say you steal a lulav. You steal it and do a mitzvah with it. Do you get the mitzvah? I'm shaking a lulav, I'm making the bracha. And says, no, it doesn't work. If it would work, I'd do it. I'm not going to lie to you. It just doesn't work. Right? Stealing money, Robin Hood theory of life, of stealing money from someone else or take it through any other sin as far as we're concerned and give it to the poor people is not a Jewish concept. One does not cancel out the other. It just doesn't. Okay.
What about in corporate America when you have to step on people to get ahead? So technically, if you have to talk Lashon Hara about someone or do something how does that?
Okay, that's a much bigger topic. I can't go into it now. I'm going to apply the first rule being, it's not so easy, right? Speaking Lashon Hara, doing anything to break halacha, and making Chil Hashem at the same time, I want to add in the corporate world, in order to get ahead, is not permitted.
Do it all the time.
Just because Jews do it doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. Most Jews don't keep Shabbat.
Do it all the time.
It's a problem. It's a problem. I'm not going to lie to you.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who are very wealthy and they've done bad things to get that money, but they donate millions of
It's a
dollars.
problem.
This institution was built.
Oh, I wouldn't. Well, I'm not going to talk smack about anyone in particular right now, Sarah. So if that's what you're trying to get to, I don't know the private affairs of the people who contribute towards this university.
You
How
wouldn't be teaching here if it weren't for people who...
made money in corporate America. That's correct. They pay my salary. And your parents do too, by the way.
Be able
Your parents make a lot of money, thank God, send you here, and part of that's coming to me.
How could
Not
one
enough, by the
take
way.
money from donors that who publicly have either gone to jail for and still get the money?
Sarah, I hear what you're saying. I can't talk about individuals. It's a problem, though. If individuals have stolen money, give it away, that I can say. I do not know the facts of anyone who's given to this particular university.
It's in the New York Times.
I hear. Not everything in the New York Times is correct. I'm not makabel. They also tell lies.
Really? So like
Yeah,
there's
I can't believe every. I don't want to hear names. I don't want names. I don't want
I'm
names.
not naming anyone. But also, very known donors in this school haven't gone to jail, but have donated like $10 million to the school.
Okay. So very big people are giving $10 million. So what? What's that got to do with it?
Either
Who says they're doing anything criminal activity?
What?
Why is that criminal activity?
Because the money is either from a lot of the donors have gone to jail because they've done illegal things to get more money.
Who told you that? How do you know? Why are you judging these people? How do you know?
I'm not judging these people. It's facts of life.
How do you know the facts of life? Because you read it online?
Not only read it online, I met the people.
And they told you they stole the money?
They wouldn't tell me, but if they admitted in a court of law, they've done something wrong.
If they would admit to court of law, then you have a question.
Then
Then you have a question. And you have a question. It shouldn't stop you studying here, because not all the money comes from one person. It's coming from tuition too. So I wouldn't worry about it.
Like 90% of the schools are on tuition.
I don't think 90%, but
A lot of people in the school. I don't know if I'm not 90%. I don't know for a fact, but I know that a ton of people.
okay, I think if you want to, I'm happy to speak with this after. Obviously, there's something that's really bothering you. If you want to discuss these people and your tuition over here, I'm happy to talk with you after class. Okay? You're
I'm
welcome.
just saying your whole concept.
It's not my concept. I'll tell you, it's not my concept. It's a Torah concept. There's nobody I know who's giving money over here who's done criminal activity and been sent to jail. Okay, let's go to page 85. What exactly is the rest we are told, God? Yes.
On that topic, I think that, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think the question more is, are you allowed to accept and benefit?
That's a fair question. Are you allowed to accept and benefit money from stolen goods?
From like, the term you used before, mitzvah, be a day, whatever.
Bavera, yeah.
So, you didn't technically do it, but are you allowed to accept the benefits of it? Is that
Well, I guess
like
everyone
what
who's
you're
donating
trying
money to YU is pulling Ponzi schemes.
I think like,
to get
I'm not,
money to YU. So
I'm
why
not
should
Not
we-
well, first you can't say everyone who's giving money is doing that. That's besmirching people, speaking lashon about people who haven't done that, right? Correct? No, but I'm saying you have to be careful, because if you make a statement like that, like all the people who give are making money from stealing, you have to be very careful. That's a very, very broad statement. Have there been people who, after the fact it's been discovered, maybe they did wrong things? That happens. Are you allowed to keep that money halachically? Probably, unless that money is vouched for someone else, but that money's been given away, and you could be able to keep it. And there's big authorities in this area than me. But it's not so simple. You can just give away and bring down a school because of it. Otherwise, a lot of trouble for a lot of people. All right?
I'm saying we should go back to YU. I'm saying like YU was.
I don't understand why this is relevant to this class. I'm sorry, but like he's not administration, he's just a professor. You should maybe bring it up to administration. Yeah, to learn. Exactly. I
Okay,
wanna
so
learn
you know
about
what? We are here to learn, and you're making a fair point, al halacha. I've answered the best I can. Any more than that, you have to go to the Rosh Yeshivas of the school or the administration. But I hear your point. I think we all hear it very clearly. I hear it. Okay, let's carry on. So the Chachamim is saying it's not any type of rest. It's a deep rest of relaxation, not a casual rest. What's the difference? Let's have a look. Page 85, halfway down. And it says, Uv'yom hashvi, the pasuk says, Uv'yom hashvi Shabbat Shabbaton Kadosh LaHashem. It is a Shabbat Shabbaton. Now those are important code words. Sabbath of Sabbaths. There are only 2 days in the calendar that have this title. And they are Shabbat and Yom Kippur. Shabbat and Yom Kippur. Now, This expression, Shabbat Shabbaton, is a code word for you can do no malacha. As opposed to Jewish holidays that are either called Shabbat or Shabbaton, like Rosh Hashanah, Sukkot, Pesach, you can do Ochel Nefesh. You can cook, says the Torah, and prepare food on those days because they are not Shabbat Shabbaton. Shabbat Shabbaton is a title that is exclusively left open only for Shabbat and Yom Kippur. It is also a code word, says Rashi, look inside, Shabbat Shabbaton, Menucha Marago Velo Menucha Arai, a deep rest and not a casual one. So on Pesach, you're resting, but it's not a deep rest. You're still involved with food preparation, food serving, food cooking, you're doing all that stuff. Sukkot, it's restful, but it's not a deep rest. It's a Menucha Margua, a general rest and stopping on Pesach or Sukkot or Rosh Hashanah. But Shabbat and Yom Kippur is Menucha, is not a casual rest. It is a deeper rest, and that is what the code words Shabbat Shabbaton are signifying for us. Let's take one example of what this means. We know in the Torah there's one thing, one malacha that is referred to specifically as being forbidden. I mean, there's a story of another malacha, which is hotzah, carrying, but what is the one malacha that is discussed specifically in the Torah?
Picking up sticks.
That's koshes eitzim. That's the story. That's correct. That's when Shabbat was given. It was broken immediately by an individual who started collecting sticks, right? But that's not the malacha as a law. It's just a story. What malacha is specifically mentioned in the Torah?
Fire.
Fire. That's right. What's that called? Havara. Oh, Aish is fire. But Havara is a making of fire. Okay, and we see it primarily in Bishul. Bishul.
Wait, where is this from?
This is in the Torah itself.
Why are we saying this?
Why are we saying what?
What's unique about this?
I'm getting there right now. So the only malacha we see specifically in the Torah, but it's mentioned as a malacha. The other 38 malachot are not mentioned. It doesn't say thou shalt not do borer, thou shalt not do plowing, right? Thou shalt not do seeding. It does say havara, no making a fire in your homes on Shabbat. Okay? Why are we being told this one particular malacha? So there's a few reasons. One of them has no real consequence to this discussion, but one does. Number one, fire, specifically in the form of bishul, havara, and bishul, has many, many implications. Has many implications when it comes to life, because everything around us is made through fire. All right? It's all things pretty much come through fire, don't they? The clothing we wear, something had to be fired up at some point. The tables we're sitting at, something had to be fired up. And now it's electricity, but same thing, right? The food we eat. So fire is such a major part of our lives. The Torah specifically said, by the way, this one you're going to be careful with. No fire, no eish in your house on Shabbat. It can be made on Shabbat. If you make it before Shabbat, then obviously it's fine, and it can be left on. But you cannot make a fire. Lo tasu eish lavu eish. You don't make a fire because so much of what we have comes through fire. The Torah is going to specifically tell us that one, be very careful with. You've got to be careful with all of them. But this is the one which most of your life is going to be involved in. Don't be involved in it. So that's one interpretation. You got that one?
Why fire?
Sherelle, did you get that one? I answered your question.
Yeah, I got it.
Good.
Why is it only visual?
Well, it could be a number of things, but bishul, that's where we see fire for the most part. Most part, you see fire and cooking. Bishul cooking is what bishul means. Cooking is where most of our activity comes from. Right? You're cooking, you're preparing food. Especially on Shabbat, when you're eating so much food, so it's like you can't be involved in that. And by the way, when you learn the laws of Shabbat, if you haven't already, many laws we have surround and act as boundaries, as gedarim, around cooking. Okay, that's why we have a blech. Okay, that, you know what blech is mostly there, that metal sheet on the fire is mostly there to remind you as a recognition that it's Shabbat. That's one of the reasons you have a blech, to remind you it's Shabbat. You see that, oh, it's Shabbat. Most people are not aware of it, they just think it's there for another reason. It's there for that reason. Also to stop you playing with the fire itself. But mostly just so you see it and remember, oh, it's Shabbat, so I can't use the fire. Right? So we have, you can't return hot items to the fire on Shabbat. You know, there's many laws when it comes to bishul and fire that have boundaries around it. I want to give you a second understanding which is related to this. Okay? So what's another reason that the Torah specifically mentions not to make a fire on Shabbat as opposed to any other forbidden activity on Shabbat? So fire is actually a code word for something else. Here the Torah is speaking, say the rabbis, metaphorically. What exactly is the Torah telling us when it says, don't make a fire in your house on Shabbat? Right, so fire is a code word for anger. Okay. Don't get angry in preparing for Shabbat, or heaven forbid, even on Shabbat. That is what the Torah means. In addition to telling you not to use fire, don't make a fire. And we know that fire represents anger. Right? Whenever you see fire, the person gets hot, they get flushed. Right? The idea of fire is related to the midah of kas. And so the Torah specifically went out of its way to remind us that we have to control our emotions on Shabbat as well. And that is the idea of menucha shalema. Because if I'm in a state of tranquility and I'm calm, then I can't get angry. So one of the reasons that God created something called menucha, rest, is there to teach us that one day a week we have to be in control of our emotions. Some people are even worse in English, right? Very hot-headed, right? Hot-headed people. Shabbat comes, no. Let's have a look at that inside. B'malat Shabbat amru b'Zohar. The Zohar says on the verse Lo tavaru eish b'chol moshvatecha b'yom Shabbat. That is the verse from the Torah. You can highlight that. Lo tavaru eish b'chol moshvatecha b'yom Shabbat. You cannot make a fire in your homes on Shabbat. Shabbat lahazir also comes to warn us al hakas, on anger, v'hamachloket, and arguments. Shehen kavarat eish, which are like burning fires. V'alidei Shabbat, and through Shabbat, nimna chelek libam, and a part of you, b'klal Yisrael, elakulam ba'achdut. We're not into chalakim, we're not separated on Shabbat. Because what does anger do? Anger separates us. And Shabbat is there to unify us. Right? So the idea of hachelek libam, dividing yourselves, getting to arguments and having division in your homes, is a terrible sin on Shabbat. It's a bad sin any day, but specifically on Shabbat. If you want to work on your character and become one day, I would choose Shabbat to do it. B'kal Yisrael, ela kulam b'achdut, everyone needs to be at peace with each other. That's the menucha the Torah is speaking about. And that takes work. Right? Because you want to get crazy with your kids. Right? Because they're smearing cholent on the walls, you know? Or flinging kugel at each other. Right? Or your, I don't know, husband says something, or you say something to him, and everyone's shouting at each other and getting angry. The answer is, not on Shabbos. And I want to include into that Erev Shabbat, which is much harder. Because Erev Shabbat, we're going to see later on, is actually, according to many opinions, a mitzvah d'oraita, a Torah mitzvah. And therefore, just preparing for Shabbat, that means doing your hair, cleaning your shoes, making the Shabbat table, are Torah mitzvot, according to many opinions. Therefore, the laws of Shabbat, to some degree, apply there as well. And getting angry, by the way, getting angry on Erev Shabbat is very easy. Very, very easy. All right, the house is flying, there's only so much hot water, and your 16-year-old daughter is in the shower for like 45 minutes, using it all up, so there's nothing left for you, right? And your cholent isn't ready, and the turn is there, and the kids are flying, and clothes are everywhere, and it's a complete mess, and you and your husband are going absolutely potty with it. Can't get angry. Now that's hard. Shabbat day are here. You're well rested, you're well fed. But Erev Shabbat, that's a real avoda. And that, by the way, say the Kabbalists, is a time specifically, hear me well, my friends, where the Yetzer Hara comes and is going to try to get you angry. And the famous story of Hillel, we discussed already. Remember that? Hillel in his house on Erev Shabbat. Did you discuss it in his class? Do we discuss that story in this class? Oh, maybe not. Hillel was in the bath on Erev Shabbat, and the Gemara tells us, and two men had a bet, and they bet each other they could get Hillel angry. One said you can't, one said you can, and he bet 400 golden zuz, which is a vast amount of money. And he went to Hillel on Erev Shabbat, and the Gemara happens on Erev Shabbat, as for a reason. And he knocks on the door, and Hillel gets out, we get into the shower, there's a knock at the door, you got to go get it. Well, nowadays we don't, but he wraps himself up, and he goes downstairs, and the man's standing there, and the guy says to him, are you Hillel? He says, yes. He goes, can I ask you a question? He goes, yeah. He goes, why is it that the heads of the Babylonians are so round? The most absurd, ridiculous question. And Hillel calmly says, well, maybe it's to do with the way they give birth. The midwives are very, very experienced. He says, okay, thank you, goes off. Hillel goes back into the bath, knock at the door, he has to come back out again, right? Wrap his head up, the Gemara says, wrap himself up, he's at the door again, and it's the same guy. He's like, you're Hillel, right? He goes, yeah. He goes, I have another question for you. He says, why is it that the Talmudians, another nation at that time, their heads are all like, straight? And it's like, well, it's because their midwives are not very good at giving birth to them, obviously, and it's affected the shape of their heads. It's like, thank you so much. He goes back, and this happens again and again. Ridiculous questions. Why are feet flat? Right? Why is the earth round? Stupid questions. Keeps asking him. Hillel, taken out the bath, Erev Shabbat, 5-6 times, never loses temper. And the man says to him, tell me, are you Hillel, who they call the Nasi Yisrael, the prince, the leader of the Jewish people? And he says, they do call me that. And he says, I hope you're the only one. And he said, why would you say such a thing to me? That's a nasty thing to say. And he says, because I just lost 400 zuz because of you on a bet, because I couldn't get you angry. And that's the end of the Gemara. And the commentators say that you learn from this that first of all, you have to not get angry, but specifically on Erev Shabbat. That's when the whole story occurs. It's an Erev Shabbat story that is brought down about the great Hillel. And by the commentators say that's what made him Hillel. It wasn't he was Hillel, and by the way, he happened to have a calm personality. He became Hillel because, and he became the leader of Israel because he had that personality. Okay? So that's another interpretation of not making an Aish in your house on Shabbat. Yes?
Could it be that, you could get angry, but you just shouldn't act upon it? You get frustrated,
Oh, yeah. Very, very good. We all get frustrated. Very, very good. Yes. A fair distinction. Actually, in my introductory class at Stern over here, I do 4 classes on anger. And then I always get angry after class for some reason. It always happens that way. Yeah, we all feel anger. It's a natural trait. Everyone feels it. The Mishnah in Pirkei Avot says there's 4 types of people in this world. People who get angry quickly, calm down quickly. People who get angry slowly, but calm down slowly. People who get angry quickly, calm down slowly. People who get angry slowly, calm down quickly. He says the tzaddik among them is the one that gets angry slowly and calms down quickly. And the commentators ask on that Mishnah, why is there not a 5th category if a person doesn't get angry at all? And the answer is, there's no such person. We all feel it, but do we act upon it, is the question. Exactly as you said. And that is the Mishnah. Maybe it's a bright at the end of it's the end of Pirkei Avot, chapter 5 or 6, I can't remember. One of those two. Okay? Which is different because 5 is Mishnah and 6 is brighter. Anyway, page 86. And by the way, I'm working it all the time. Any parent is working on it all the time. Because children are there and they're paid and created to drive you nuts. As I did to my parents. I still do to my parents, God bless them. V'nei katuv parsha, it says in Shemot, Uv'yom hashvi Shabbat Shabbaton. Remember Shabbat Shabbaton, write this down. Code word for no melacha whatsoever, and that means a deep, complete rest. Unlike the other holidays that are called Shabbat or Shabbaton, that's why you can do any melacha, even food preparation on Yom Kippur or Shabbat. Forbidden food preparation, obviously. Says Rashi, Menucha margu v'lo menucha arai. Deep rest, not a casual one. U'menucha arai hakavana shemidotav. What does that mean, a casual rest? He says, when a person is in casual rest, not deep rest, hakavana shemidotav lo nishtanu b'yesodam. They haven't changed. You've remained the same person. A deep rest means you're working yourself. You're at such deep introspection. You're so inside yourself, right? You're so happy with who you are. There's no inner battles whatsoever, that you're not the same person after Shabbat than you were before. That's what Rashi says. you've changed. You shouldn't be the same person Motzi Shabbat as you are to Erev Shabbat. You know what that means? Does that make sense? Motzi Shabbat, you're meant to be a different person. Okay, we know you feel fatter, but I'm not talking about that. You're meant to be a person who is not the same as you Erev Shabbat. Erev Shabbat, which happens most times, because Erev Shabbat you're stressed out. Motzi Shabbat you're more chilled out. That's the way it's meant to be. Shabbat is meant to change you. What does that mean? Change you? Change your character. Your personality should be different. Right? Hakavana shmira tov lo shabi yosodav v'nishar k'mot shehu. Kasan, anger, or mevual, or bal machloket, shekashaya, all the argumentative you, and the irritated you, and the adversary you, gone. Ela b'poel hu ragua. In actuality, you're relaxed. Okay? And he says that's despite the fact that you have an extra soul that's come to help you do that. Even the other side. Right? Ze'ena karoi. Right? If a person does not do that, that's not Shabbat Shabbaton. Which means on Pesach, you get a little stressed out. On Sukkot, you're a little stressed out. You got stuff going on. You got the Sukkah, right? You got the Matzah, you got the Sedarim, you got stuff going on. You know, in Shavuot, you're staying up late and you're making cheesecake. Right? Rosh Hashanah, you're like scared. There's a fear going over there. Shabbat, totally different. You cannot compare Shabbat to any of those days. Which is why there's only one of those a year and 52 of the other. Right? Ella, Ratzda Torah, Menucha Shal. The Torah, it wants you to have a Menucha Shal Keva, fixed. It's got to be a rest that is fixed inside you. Right? It's kavua. It's deep inside you. Right? Hainu, sheyitiv midotav lagamrei. That your character traits, your midotav, your midot, change totally. Lagamrei, totally. Page 86, second paragraph down. Yakor melibo, and you uproot from your heart mida kas machloket, anger and adverse and argument. Shelo yoba filu b'koach. Not even the potential. Not even the potential. You have to totally uproot it. This is tough, by the way. This is not easy. Stopping malacha is easy compared to this. That's what it means. Shabbat does not mean going to sleep. Right? You're allowed to take extra physical rest, which is why Shabbat services in most communities start later. There's no doubt about that. But that's not what it's talking about. It's not talking about physical rest. It's not talking about going to the golf club and hanging out. It means working in a personality and being, as we say in today's language, present in the moment. That's what it's saying. There should be no division whatsoever. Okay? And therefore, don't put yourself to places where you know that's going to happen. Yeah.
So when people make the argument of saying like, oh, why can't I just go to a golf club and just do whatever I want and just land on the beach? So the whole thing about Shabbat is the physical rest comes from the mental tranquility, meaning by fixing yourself mentally.
Nicely put. Nicely put.
When you're lying on a beach and
One is a reflection of the other, but there's no doubt about it. Again, golf may be restful. I mean, besides the fact you're probably breaking malacha by doing it, right? Like getting there and the rest of that. So we'll leave that aside. But if you were to find an activity, listen, if you want to sit out and rest on Shabbat and read books, that's fine as well. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, obviously. Okay? If that's going to help you. But ultimately, what you're trying to do, that's what Rashi is telling us. Most people are not aware of this. Really, you're meant to be working on your personality, working on yourself, not on your golf game or your tennis hand. I'm not a golfer, I'm a tennis player. I play it a few times a week. Believe me, that's not what it's there for. That's not what it's there for. It's just not. Yeah? But exactly as you said, this is the words of Rav Benzion Bamberger. He was the yeshiva mashgiach from Yeshiva Panovich. Look at the bold print on page 86, third paragraph down. HaTorah oseret ba, the Torah forbids kol malacha ul malacha kedei, in order. Why do you not do malacha? Not because malacha is bad. It's not bad. You do it all week. Kedei letet la'adam, to give a person et ha'efsharut, the ability la'agir l'dei menucha nafshi gemura, of an inner tranquility. The stopping of malacha is only there to help you reach an inner tranquility. That's why you don't do malacha, according to him. Right? It's a means to an end, not an end in and of itself. A means to an end, not an end of itself. Okay? It's Jewish meditation. I'll give you some material for your paper, haven't I? I'm giving you gold over here. Your paper should be written in your head already. The whole thing should be written. You should have the introduction, the main part, the conclusion, the thank you letter that goes with it, all the rest of it. Yeah. Okay. A lot of the sources seem to be saying the same thing. Okay, the altar of Clown. Okay, so that's just page 8. So we'll just do a quick summary of page 87, halfway down. I mean, I already said it, but we'll just see it inside. So really, that's what Rashi is telling us, that Hashem didn't create the world in 6 days and rest on the 7th, meaning he did nothing on the 7th. Rest is something, it's not nothing. Okay, so you can say, you can argue quite effectively, that creation took 7 days, and different things we create on each and every day. You can argue that, and that will be a fair argument to make. On the 7th day, there wasn't anything physical. It was the completion, because all the malacha of the first 6 days came to allow you to enjoy Shabbat. Right? The first 6 days, that's why it came first. Why couldn't it just start with a day of rest and then do 6 days? Right? That would have been like an understandable thing to do. First day of the week, let's all go to sleep, rest, and then we'll start the week off. You got to work, and you got to earn it, you got to deserve it, and now you're there, you can rest from it. It had to be 6 days of physical creation, and then 1 day of menucha creation. What did Hashem create on the 7th day? Menucha, rest. That would be the answer to that question. Okay? And according to the commentators over here, page 87, this thing called rest is actually the greatest of all traits. Menucha is when you get to work on yourself, you get to learn more, you get to be present with yourself, your family, your friends. That's what life is all about. She says. That's really the goal of everything. The goal of all of life, the 6th day of creation, is to get you there. So let's do it like this and we'll finish with this, because my brain's full. The following statement is made in L'Chadodi, which we sing on Friday night. Write this down. Sof Maaseh Mach. Thank you. Shava Tehila. The beginning of all Maaseh action. The beginning of all action is the end of all thought. What does that mean? That means you begin with the end in mind. Sof Maaseh, the end of all action, but Machshavat Tchila is what you were thinking about at the beginning. That's what we say in L'Chadodi, right? What does that mean? That means you have a goal at the end, and then you work backwards from that goal. You're setting up a business. How do you set up a business? You think about, you want to make money. That's my goal. And then you work backwards. How am I going to make money? What goods are missing? What am I good at? What can I produce? How can I produce it? Let me buy a store. Let me get the produce to go inside the store. You don't get a store in Midtown Manhattan, buy computers, pencils, and pens, and notebooks, and okay, what should we sell? That's just insane. You start with the end in mind. Right? That's how you do everything in life. You start with the end in mind. Right? Any project you do, you start with the end in mind. Where am I going to go? Right? You're writing a paper. The introduction, you're already thinking about the conclusion and how you're going to get there. Right? You start with the end in mind. You already hint at the conclusion in the introduction. Right? Any introduction, any book is always that. You read the introduction, you know how it's going to end up. This is a novel, I don't want to reveal it to you, but any book of information is going to give that information to you. Okay. So if that's true, that means, just follow carefully for a minute. Each subsequent day of creation is more important than the one before, right? Because you have day 1, which is heaven and earth, right? And then you have day 2. Then you have day 3. Each day is more important than the one before because that's closer to my goal. and anything that's created on day 1, I need because day 2 cannot precede it. Right? First, you need to have heaven and earth. But that's not the important thing. It's just that you need heaven and earth to have grass and trees and fruit. But then the trees and fruit are there for the animals. And the animals are there for the humans. So each day is there to serve the one after it. Does that make sense? So if someone were to ask you, what's the most important day of creation? You wouldn't say the first, because that's only there because day 2 needs it. But day 2 is only there because day 3 needs it. And day 3 needs it because day 4 needs it, and so on and on. So many people make the mistake of thinking the most important day of creation is day 6. Because on day 6 you have animals. The animals are created first, and then the humans. What's more important, animals or humans? Humans. What came first? Animals. Because we need the animals. So Hashem, God created the animals first, and then let the humans come. So by the time we turn up, there's animals, there's oceans, there's water, there's trees, there's fruit, there's heaven and earth. The later you are in creation, the more important you are. Now, if creation stopped there, you would turn around and say, therefore, humans are the most important part of creation, because they are created last. But there's something that's created after that. And what's that? Shabbat. Which means, according to this argument, that Shabbat is more important than anything that came before. Shabbat is more important than any day that comes before it. So you agree, that, well, it doesn't make sense because nothing's happening on Shabbat. But like, no, something is happening on Shabbat. It's the completion of all the 6 days that came before. It's the culmination of all of them. It's the Sof Maaseh v'Machshavat Tchila. What's the Sof Maaseh? Shabbat. What was created on Shabbat? Menucha, rest, real menucha, right? Which is contemplation, experience, thinking, understanding, digesting, everything that came before, appreciation, and everything else that came before. So Shabbat is the most important creation. Actually, you can even say that God created the world for Shabbat. And it's more important than humans, because Shabbat comes after humans were created. And therefore Shabbat, as it were, needs humans. Without humans, without us, there is no Shabbat. So God created the world in order to have Shabbat. Now, it had to get to that point, and a lot of things had to happen, which is why Shabbat occurs at the beginning of creation, and not just at Har Sinai, because it had to exist from the moment the world was created, because it was the whole point of creation. So there was no kosher, there was no Pesach, right? There was no lot of mitzvot at creation, but there was Shabbat, because that's the whole point God created the world. So Shabbat has to appear at the beginning of the Torah, the beginning of the Bible, because it's the whole point of creation in totality. Okay. Stop over there. I'm done. Please work on your papers.
Wait, do you mark these here?
I couldn't. You walked in late. How could I have?
Really?
Yeah.